thanks for coming here. I was actually participating in some of the Lean Startup Meetups, and then I was thinking, okay, maybe we can take like a specific topic of Lean user experience, which I'm trying actually to implement in some of organizations, both corporates and startups. My name is Agnieszka Walorska. I'm now for 9 years in Germany, and since I'm here, I'm kind of in the startup scene. Since 3 years I have digital consultancy, and we advise both startups, but even more corporates on the topics of digital innovation and user experience. So it's very interesting because the experiences are not that much different between the startups and the corporates. So how does normally a relaunch or a user experience process look like? In the most companies, I experience like a big bang relaunch. So we're not doing incremental changes, but we're like just launching a new product every 1 or 2 or 3 years. And most of the time it's also in a kind of more or less waterfall project. So there's some specification, and then there's an agency probably doing the stuff on a fixed price model, or maybe there's an internal IT who is developing this, and so on. So both in big companies and also in some startups, people are focusing on deliverables. So there are like a lot of deliverables. Scribbles are deliverables, wireframes, flows, sitemaps, and front specifications. Yeah, and it all takes quite a lot of time. And actually, you will think, okay, startup can do it better because we don't have this huge organizational overload. But in a lot of cases they don't, and then in this case they do even worse because they don't have this whole lot of money to waste, which corporates normally have. So yeah, why is it actually bad to produce all this stuff? Yeah, which kind of deliverables the user will ever see? Which user will go to the, I don't know, to Zalando and say, I will download the wireframes and they are so awesome that I will really like all the time buy my jeans there because they produce so awesome wireframes. Not just like this. So what happens with this whole paperwork we produce? And most of this is just some, yeah, it's just waste. And in most cases, not like this, but it's somewhere in an archive folder on some kind of server, and nobody will ever see it again. But okay, you can say we need all of this, we need a specification, because without a specification we'll not get a proper quote, and if we not get a proper quote, then we cannot really develop this whole thing. And yeah, but it's only if it really works in this in a waterfall model, and only if your internal IT or your service provider is not flexible enough to try to do it better. The most relaunch processes, and last year I was responsible for the UX in like I think the most inefficient user experience process ever. They actually wanted us to adjust the wireframes to the designs after the designs were approved, because there were slight changes between wireframes and designs, and they needed the wireframes for the documentation. So I think it's very inefficient. So probably you all know how it works, like requirements, then UX, the designs, and sometimes UX and visual design is the same process, but for most people UX means creating a lot of wireframes, which is for the people who are not from UX side here, it's not, yeah, it's a bit more than producing wireframes. And then there's development and testing and launch. So if you have a deeper look into this UX and design process, there's a whole shitload of requirements, and the UX team is going through the requirements and so on, and then trying to understand this, and there are like this initial stuff which is being done in their meetings when it's approved, and then wireframes which are sometimes very deep and detailed, and there are meetings again, and visual designs who are again designing each screen and each element and so on, and meetings and specification, and yeah, at some point of time we probably have to do some user testing, but we spend all of the money and time and human resources on doing all the other stuff, so we don't really have the time to do proper user testing, because if the results are not as we expected, then we cannot really introduce the changes, because yeah, we are out of time and so on. So, no, not real user feedback, because of course everything should be accepted and blah blah. So, what does it actually mean? Such process can take like months, or if we're talking corporate or specifically, for example, banks, it's years, yeah. And even if you didn't code anything, it's just months for doing all this preparation. Of course, it's faster in startups, but it's still months and not days, which it should be. So, what does it mean? The thing which should have been the next great thing since sliced bread just ends up in a disaster, because everything changed. Since if we are talking like 9 months about the technology, about some new business models, the expectations could be completely different than at the point as we started working with this. So there's a quite nice quote from Seth Godin. Great projects start out feeling like buildings. There are architects, materials, staff, rigid timelines, permits, engineers, and structure. And that's how it feels like. But actually, projects, especially digital projects, they're gardens. You know, you're not building something which is ready. You have to work with it. Everything is changing. The environment is changing. And you have to adapt to this. There was something smart I wanted to say about this. Wait a minute. Yeah, exactly. Because that's the question, you know, as a service provider, we're getting quite often. When it will be ready? And what should I say? I mean, first possible answer is, what do you mean by ready? Second possible answer is no idea. And the other possible answer is never. But, you know, big surprise, the customer will not be very happy with this answer. So you're trying to build some packages and do some stuff which is ready, but a digital project is never ready. Forget it, it's just never ready. And I think the organizations just need to get some kind of used to it, to this transformations of not getting stuff ready, but yeah, working with this stuff continuously. And you need a project team who is also enabled to make fast decisions and not wait every time for some kind of approval. And of course, in big organizations you have this problem of the big hierarchy, but also in startups you have the problem of kind of centralized decision making, which means the founders, for example, they want to make all the decisions, which of course is understandable. It's about their product, but they're also at the same time they're doing all minor decisions about sales, about marketing, about finance, and so on. So there's just not enough focus. So you have to allow some space and some possibilities of decision making to the people who are actually working with this product. And or as in recent example, there are like 3 founders, and each one wants to be equally involved in this user experience process. And yeah, they're not even anonymous within these 3 people. So it's very difficult to make good decisions and to go fast forward with that process. And yeah, sometimes it's really like this, that actually everything is done and prepared, and all the people are just waiting for the decision making to make the decision. Or sometimes it's even worse, that there's just, the decision is just being projected. Because of course if you're taking care about all this stuff, you are not involved deeply enough in this process to understand what implications are attached to this improvement. So yeah, if there are some founders here who are working with user experience design teams, just give them some space where they can play around and do stuff and also decide this. And of course, depending on the organization, there can be like less or more leeway. And yeah, if there are more regulations, then of course the results will be more predictable. Sometimes it's desirable, sometimes it's not that much desirable, and yeah, if you want to have some more innovation and creativity, then just give people some more space. But given we have all this, how we really proceed with this whole user experience stuff? So the first thing is, of course, to start with a problem. Probably you all know it. If you kind of know about Lean Startup, it's the same in UX. It's focusing very much on the problem. And ironically enough, the people from outside of organizations are mostly much better on identifying the right problems. That's why startups coming completely outside of industries are able to disrupt these industries, because they don't have this political thinking, this thinking like, we have always done this like this, and so on. But, you know, after a while, also this creative, disruptive startups, they also became insider. And they also are getting these problems of not seeing the real problems of the users. That's why sometimes we're working with big companies, and we're just going there and just asking, like, you know, stupid questions. And there's a very nice website I can recommend it to you. It's called 50 Problems in 50 Days from Peter Smart. And it's really, he just tried to solve 50 different problems within 24 hours each. And they're very, very different, from homelessness in Turin and to finance management stuff and so on. And how did he proceed? He really asked like very, very dumb and basic questions, and he decided just not to know anything. And the most important of these questions is the questions, you know, the kids are always asking, the people who have kids or know it. It's like, why? And the same, you should just be a kid if you're a user experience designer, and just question everything and just ask why. And okay, that's one point. But the other is, of course, who is the target group? Whose problem are we solving? And it's also quite funny, because in a lot of companies, if you are asking this question, is, oh, we want to address everybody. Yeah, everybody's our client. And no, there's no everybody. Sorry, I have to disappoint you. Because the point is, if I'm saying I'm addressing everyone, everyone is the audience, then most of the time I'm thinking about myself. What do I like? What are my preferences? Do I like this screen or maybe something else? And it's very important to separate yourself from this target group. And the exercise, which is very, very helpful for this, is creating persona. Some of you probably know it. And what was the persona? It's Daniel, and Daniel is 43. He's divorced. He has 2 kids. One is 3, one is 7. And in his spare time, he just do some sports and spend a lot of time with his kids. And yeah, it's very important, because they're living with their mother normally, and he doesn't have that much time with them, so it's very, very precious. And that's why when he wants to book a trip, for example, for himself and them, he wants to do it very, very quickly without any distraction, and preferably from the playground on his iPad and so on. And yeah, Daniel probably doesn't exist. At least I have no idea. But we created him for a project for a customer, as we were working in some travel industry stuff. Because this was the target group. And now, when I'm thinking about some functionalities, about design decisions and so on, I'm then thinking not what would I like, which feature I would use, but what will solve Daniel's problem. Yeah, and I think that's one of the the most important things in the user experience process. Yeah, which problem do I want to solve for which person? for which target group. I think it's very important to have this clear to avoid this futuritis or feature creep. And for the people who don't know what feature creep is, it's just like, you know,
if you don't know what it is, you're living it.
Probably, yeah. So it's like, let's take this feature and this feature and this feature and this will be cool. And our competitor actually have this one. Oh, we need really to have this one. And then we end up with, I don't know, 50 different things, and while our customer actually just need like 3 of them. And to avoid this, it's just much better to ask some questions instead of like defining features. And it's also very, very important. This one are more from relaunch perspective than from the new products perspective. But the process is similar. Like, for example, like very concrete questions like, will there be fewer abandoned shopping baskets if we add more payment methods, instead of just saying, oh, we're adding payment methods? Or does one big form lead to more registrations? Or will product videos increase our conversion rate? And much more. And the important thing behind this question is that they are measurable. And you can just easily decide, did we really, when you can answer this question. Because you can measure it with A/B tests, with analytics, with user tests, or with the combination of all these different methods. That's why the question like, will the user like it when we paint the website in yellow, will not really be a proper question, because you cannot really measure something like, will user find it nicer? If you have the question, will we increase the conversion rate if the website will be yellow, then probably we can take this one. So if some of you read the book Lean UX, you probably know some about this hypothesis, and it works really good. I recently did the hypothesis workshop with a big corporate client, and they were like just, wow, it's something completely different, and we're learning so much about our own business model. So it's really quite cool. And the hypotheses are structured like in. Start always with we believe that building a special functionality for a specific persona will achieve a specific outcome. And the important thing here is also that we say we'll know this is true if we see a market feedback. So let's take Daniel and be a bit more specific. So for example, we believe that adding PayPal as a payment method will meet Daniel's need for secure and quick online payment. And we know that it's true if the number of dropouts in a checkout process decreases by 5%. For example, it's just very hypothetical. But if we did this exercise, then we most of the time have a big list of different hypotheses. So we're not yet done, because most of the time we cannot really implement all of them. So we have to prioritize, and it's hard stuff. So there is a very nice quote from Steve Jobs. And people think focus means saying yes to the things you've got to focus on. But that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that are there. So innovation is saying no to 1,000 things. And I think this is very, very, very important, because otherwise you cannot really go to the market with cannot create MVP if you're not able to focus. But how? Which features are we going for? And the best way is usually just to go for the low-hanging fruits first and do some minor changes really good and measure them, and then improve. And it's really important to be very, very, very fast. And why I'm saying this, most of the people will say, yeah, why fast? The quality is so important, and not being fast. But there is also a very good a quote or a good example from the book Art and Fear, and it's actually about building pods. So there was indeed such an experiment by a ceramics teacher, and on the beginning of the year he thought like the half of the people Okay, you will get your grades only based on the quantity of the pots you're preparing, and the other half has to prepare the perfect pot. So he just brought the bathroom scale for the quantity group, and you know, if you had 15 pounds, then you get an A. If you get 40, then you get B. It was very, very simple. And for the other group, you just had to prepare one perfect pot to get an A. And surprise, the quantity group had just prepared much, also from the quality point of view, much better pots than the other group. Because what did they do? They just started building, and then they learned very easily from their mistakes. They iterated, while the other group was spending like months on discussing the theoretical concept of perfection, and ended up with, you know, some clay and a model of perfectionality. So I think it's not that different if we're talking about digital products. So we're focusing on doing perfect deliverables and perfect wireframes and the perfect product, and we don't want to go to the market with something which is not perfect from our perspective. And of course it's difficult, but because you always see, oh, that might be better, this might be better, but if we bring like some small testable product to the market, then you've got a real market feedback, it can be tested, and then it can be iterated and will change. And if you see all of this very successful products, I mean, how did Facebook look like a few years ago? Or how did whatever look like 2 or 3 years ago? They all started with something different than they are now. So, because how can we decide if we have the perfect product if we don't have the market reaction? I mean, then it's perfect for me. It's fine. I have the money to do it. Then I will prepare a perfect product for me, and then it will be just for me. And then it's fine. So, if there is a recipe or something for a efficient and lean user experience process, then I will just recommend really to always ask why, or ask other dumb questions, and yeah, to iterate the stuff instead of being perfect from the beginning, and to focus on market feedback and on the time to market and on the improvement, and yeah, fail early and succeed faster. Thank you.